Okay, it's preparing to live stream. And now I feel like I have started the video, so I don't quite understand what I need to do to start the meeting. It says the host has stopped the video. Molly, are you able, it says that the host has stopped the video. I haven't done that.
I just got on, so I apologize. There's a minute. Well, I guess I'm right on time, but I see YouTube webinar is now live streaming on YouTube. Is that what you're?
Yeah, and people are posting, commenting that they see us and that we are live. But Supervisors Schofield and Kristen aren't able to get their video going and are saying that's because they are getting a message that says the host has stopped the meeting.
I'm totally fine with staying off camera, Caleb.
Yeah, I think I've seen allow, somebody figured this out last time. It was in the settings.
I know this feels well, we have 16 attendees, and I apologize to you all for the technical difficulties, but we will figure this out shortly. I could stop. Where is stopping?
Well, I saw where to pause the recording, but let me just see. God, somebody figured this out last time when this happened.
Well, I don't care if they see me or not.
Ed and I are good at staying in the dark.
Shall I start over and come back in?
No, you have attendees. It's after time. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I think we're okay. And Ryan is on. I'll try to continue to figure it out while we get started.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I don't know how to do that. Oh, Ryan is saying in your Zoom meeting controls, click participants. In the participant list, click.
Oh, I just found allow panelists to start video. Try it now.
Thank you. You're amazing. All right. Thank you all very much. We are recording. We are live on YouTube. And my name is Caleb Dardick. Welcome to the Nevada County COVID-19 Business Task Force meeting. This meeting is being recorded as well as broadcasting live on YouTube. And thank you for your patience as we figured out this still modern technology for some of us. I would like to start by recognizing Supervisor Ed Schofield to give us a brief welcome and to note that our chair, our new incoming board chair, Dan Miller, is in another meeting, but will be joining us shortly. Supervisor Schofield.
Well, thank you, Caleb. So Caleb asked me to say something about what's happening in Washington, D.C. at the moment. And, you know, maybe some of you might have something to really add to this, but I can't think of anything to say except to me it's very distressing. I think any of us that are in government are very, very disappointed in this type of reaction. We have these situations, certainly not as controversial, I guess, that goes on in our own chambers, and I would just pray that our community wouldn't do something as absurd as what's happening there right now. To me, it's quite embarrassing. And, you know, I'm a Republican myself, and I'm telling you, it's very, very embarrassing. So I guess at this point, there's not a heck of a lot we can do about that. So we need to focus on our pandemic, I'm excited about the fact that we've got Dr. Scott Kellerman coming in as our public health officer. And just looking at our public health team and getting us through this and all working together, especially with our businesses. Thank you, Caleb.
Thank you, Supervisor. I do appreciate you saying that. I think we all acknowledge that this is a dark and still unfolding day. And so your leadership, and I think the example that you and your colleagues on the Board of Supervisors have shown, decency, respect for one another and the public, is something that we all admire and appreciate. It certainly makes me proud to be part of this government when I see the civility and respect that you and others have always displayed to the staff, to the public, and one another. And that's what we all are here for, is service. And so I just want to thank you for that and acknowledge the gravity of this day. And with that, I would like to turn really to one of the most grave things facing our nation and the world, which is this ongoing pandemic. And again, to thank our HHSA director, Ryan Gruber, who's just been such a steady presence and such reliable source of information from the beginning and continues to be. And with that, Ryan, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Caleb, and thank you for having me again. And I just want to say our public health director, Jill Blake, is fond of, has been heard to say that this pandemic has brought out the best of us and it's brought out the worst of us. And over the last 10 months, I think we've seen a lot of that, even from the people on this call, in terms of stepping up to this moment, being able to make sacrifices, do the things that are necessary to modify their business in order to protect their customers and the community. We've seen public health work extraordinary hours to contain this virus. We've seen community partners collaborate to help shelter our homeless, and that's who we are as a community, and we are much better than what we're seeing. And I think sort of an awkward segue here, but I think that spirit of what Nevada County is something that's really exemplified in our new health officer. Supervisor Schofield mentioned that we will be bringing on Dr. Scott Kellerman. So that's where I would like to start off, just acknowledging that and saying that you all will be hearing more from him in the coming days. So we are very grateful that not only have we been able to find somebody in a time when it's very difficult to find people who are willing to step into that, but to find somebody who's motivated to do it out of wanting to give back to this community is really extraordinary. So I'm excited to introduce him to all of you when the time comes. And we couldn't have him coming on board at a better time as we start to really ramp up our vaccine efforts. So with that out of the way, I would like to just briefly talk about cases before getting into regional stay-at-home order, testing, and then the vaccines, which I'm sure a lot of people are curious about. So in terms of our cases, we are currently, as of yesterday's update, at 2,774 cases in Nevada County. Strikingly, 620 of those cases are active. That means those are the people who recently tested positive and are not out of that contagious phase and are supposed to be contact traced and supported by public health. That's an extraordinary number, 620. When they surged their staff, they had projected that they were able to handle 80, and they're stretched well beyond that at the same time when they're focused on vaccine rollout. So that does mean that there is some prioritization going on, and not everybody's necessarily getting that phone call right away. So they're having to strategize how they reach out with emails and things like that. So in terms of fatalities, so since the last time we spoke, we've added quite a number of fatalities to our dashboard. We're currently at 50 deaths. It's been several days since we added any new deaths to the dashboard, so hopefully that trend continues. We're kind of in a wait and see pattern around did New Year's, did Christmas really contribute to a spike in cases? Because what we've seen as a pattern throughout this is you see a spike of cases that's trailed by a couple of weeks in hospitalizations, and then after that you start to see tragically some deaths start to result. So in terms of ICU capacity, that's really a key focus lately due to the regional stay-at-home order and some of the things we're seeing going on in Southern California and other regions. Our ICU capacity in Nevada County has been at or around 0 for the last several weeks. We've been bouncing really between 2 and 0. As of this morning when I checked, we were at 0 ICU beds in Nevada County. We really benefit from being able to transfer regionally. And so to us, what's going on in the greater Sacramento region is what's most relevant. And the greater Sacramento region has remained above 0, which is where Southern California and San Joaquin find themselves. but still a very troubling situation. We're definitely trying to avoid what we're starting to see in Southern California, where they're having to triage and prioritize care and divert people to different hospitals. That's what all of these efforts are about, preventing, so that people don't die deaths that are preventable. So in that vein, we, as many of you should be aware, we are under a regional stay-at-home order. We remain under that. That stay-at-home order was triggered when the greater Sacramento region dipped below 15% ICU capacity. There was some confusion. A lot of people had made the assumption that because that order was a minimum of 3 weeks, that after 3 weeks, the stay-at-home order expired. The state has made clear and has now extended that and indicated that we will be released based on projections of ICU capacity. So once their modeling and projections, which they're going to be sharing, I hope soon, show the county or the region going up above 15%, then they'll release the counties or the region from the stay-at-home order. They're also working on the methodology so that we're not bouncing back and forth, which we know is disruptive to businesses. If we were to go out and then the next day go back in, that would be a problem. So I know they're working on a mechanism of it taking a certain amount of time before going backwards, but hopefully the trend would be to gradually improve by the time we're released, so that won't happen. Once we are eventually released from the regional stay-at-home order, it will be back to the tiered framework, which I've talked about on this call before, which is varying levels of openness based on the conditions on the ground in terms of number of cases per 100,000 and the positivity rate. We do have some encouraging signs on that front, as the state has continued to do the weekly Tuesday data updates, and we have started to see our case rates decrease and our positivity rate decrease. This week's update actually showed our positivity rate in the red category, which is the second most restrictive tier. Unfortunately, your position in the tiered framework is based on whichever criterion is worse, and our case rate is still 24 per 100,000 per day, which is around 3 times the criteria we would need in order to go down to the red tier. So we'll keep an eye on that as we head towards hopefully the end of the regional stay-at-home order, and hopefully we're in a place where we can come out to a less restrictive tier. Brief update on testing. So right now, there are a lot more appointments available through our OptumServe site than there were a couple weeks ago. I go in and check it daily. Yesterday, I was able to find a same-day appointment. Today, I think the next available appointment was tomorrow. So that's a lot better than it was a few weeks ago, where there were just no appointments available. We worked with the state to add a day to the testing site, and that will start this Saturday. So the testing site will be operating 6 days a week. That's 165 more tests per week. We're also working with our facilities and others to try to convert it to a drive-through option. Folks have expressed concern about wanting to stand in line with people who are potentially symptomatic in order to get a test. So we're working to transition that to drive-through. We also are starting to bring on board options for what's known as color kits. These are kits that are available to certain organizations like schools, our public health department, so that we can relieve some of the strain on that public testing site by handling more of the tests in-house. And then there are a variety of other testing options coming online, and there are now FDA-approved home test kits that people can get and administer themselves. And so there's a lot more testing coming online. Unfortunately, it's as late in the pandemic as it is, but things are definitely improving on the testing front. Now, with regards to vaccine rollout, we'll definitely be bringing forth a lot more information on vaccines as we proceed. I want to draw everybody's attention to, and I will post a link out to, the Community Vaccine Advisory Committee work group. That's the state is basically, so the federal government or the CDC has put out a framework for who should receive the vaccine at what point, especially in the beginning when that is a scarce resource. And then the state is using a public process to determine a phased and tiered system for who gets vaccine at what point. And they're doing that publicly through open meetings. There's actually one, I believe, going on right now. And there's a website where you can go and you can see the materials from their presentations and what tiers get the vaccines first, who falls into those tiers and that kind of thing. And that's really one of the best sources for information right now. We've also incorporated that information, including what's already settled through that process and what they're considering, onto a new vaccine schedule page that we've put up on our website. I will also post out the link to that. And that should be helpful for people to understand both where we are, who's currently eligible for the vaccine, what's next, and then what's coming beyond that. The actual timing of that is a little bit difficult because it's based on estimates of how many people are within each of those categories and estimates of when we're going to get vaccine. And as we've seen at both the state and the federal level, the delivery of vaccine has been a lot slower than was originally anticipated. So the timing is a little bit challenging. Right now we're in tier 1 of phase 1A. So that's the very first tier. They're expecting to get to tier or phase 1B towards the end of the month, then phase 1C in a February timeframe, and that February to early spring, and then the broader vaccine for the broader community would be spring to summer timeframe is the broad estimates that they've put out there. And I can again post out links so that you can see that information more specifically. So I think that's about all I have for today. I'm sure there's a variety of questions, so I'm available to answer those, and I'll check out what's in the chat as well.
Right, thank you, Ryan. And if people do have questions, if you could put them in the Q&A. I see one, Heather Featherston, in regards to being available in Nevada County. Is that?
That was related to vaccines, and she posted that right before Ryan talked about vaccines. So if there are any other specific questions about vaccines, go ahead and post those in the Q&A, and I'm sure Ryan will get to them. Okay.
All right, so it looks like we are caught up there. Yeah, we can come back to that and answer them in real time, and I'll check back again after the next speaker. All right, well, thank you, Ryan. Let's go next to business resources, and I'm sure you've all been seeing a flurry of emails coming from various sources, which is good news. And to sort of synthesize it and put it all together for you is Kristen York and Leslie Williams with the Sierra Business Council. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I meant to acknowledge Molly first. Do you mind, Kristen, just waiting one moment?
Taking that down? No problem.
Sorry, I'm not even following my script, much less using the...
That's no problem. I have a very brief update just around our compliance programs and education programs for businesses to help them follow the health orders and the stay-at-home order. So we continue to hone our process. It's been definitely an evolution to figure out, how to manage and respond to the complaints that we receive regarding businesses that aren't following the health order over the last 9 months now. And so we continue to refine the process. We keep hoping we can just be done with it, but unfortunately we're not, and we continue to need to sort of refine what we're working on. So we do now have a pretty good system of having our complaints funneled through our Ask Nevada County app or link on our website. So that's where we're receiving complaints about businesses or other concerns that people have about following the statewide order. And then we're able to take the data that comes through there and refer to cities if it's a city jurisdiction where the concern took place, or if it's in the unincorporated area of the county, or if it's a food facility, our environmental health department follows up. So we have a pretty refined workflow at this point as far as where those complaints go to, and doing outreach to businesses to make sure that they're aware of what the current orders are. Just a couple of pieces of information. We are seeing a pretty significant uptake of businesses who are contacting us because they're upset that other businesses are not complying, and they feel that that's unfair competition, and really are feeling frustrated about the businesses that aren't complying and how that's impacting themselves as far as delaying our ability to recover from this and have them be able to reopen their business. So really trying to follow up on those. We're sharing the data, as I said, not only every complaint we get in the city limits, making sure the cities are aware of what's going on, as well as we now have the ability to do a biweekly data report that we're sending to the city managers so that they know sort of the overall big picture of what the concerns are that the community has that's happening within their jurisdictions. And then the last piece I just wanted to bring up, because we've gotten some questions about some misinformation out there. So apparently some gym owners seem to think that the county has given them a pass and they don't have to comply with the statewide order. There's been some reports of citizens saying, hey, this gym owner told us that the county said it's okay if they're open. So I just want to be really clear that gyms are to be closed during the statewide stay-at-home order. There is no pass, there is no exception. The county does not have the authority to create an exception to that. So if there's misinformation about whether it's safe to go to the gym, at this point, gyms should be closed until we come out of the statewide order and we can get back into the tiered system. So that's the extent of my update. We can move on to Kristen and Leslie, and then I'll check the chat if there's any follow-up questions.
All right. Thank you, Molly. And then Ryan, is there anything in the questions that you'd like to respond to live, or it looks like you're doing them directly on the typing them?
I posted quite a number of links in the chat to them or to Nevada County websites. We have a web page where we post out information about the vaccine, including the number of vaccines that have been so far received in Nevada County, which I think last I checked was around 2,800. That's proportionally higher than what you would get from what's been distributed in the state based on our population size. So that's out there. And then I also posted out the link to the vaccine schedule, which has more of a graphical depiction of it that you can go out and check out who, kind of what groups fall into which phases and tiers. So hopefully that's helpful to folks. And if people have more specific questions, you can definitely go out and ask them in the chat. There's a question about, will students be mandated to get vaccines? At this point, there have been no discussions about mandating vaccines for any categories. And we're frankly at a point where the vaccine is scarce enough that that's not a conversation that has to happen at this point. There's not enough vaccine to go around for even those that want it, let alone for those that don't want it.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much. And with that, let me turn it over to Kristen York and Leslie Williams with the Sierra Business Council.
Thank you, Caleb. I honestly can't tell if I'm screen sharing or not.
Yes, you are, and it looks fine.
It does? Okay, great.
Yep.
So Kristen York from Sierra Business Council. With me today is Leslie Williams, who I can honestly say has been on the phone 10 to 12 hours a day with answering questions primarily about the California grant. But let me jump into what is going on. And I'm just talking about resources today. So this is your last call for the Nevada County Relief Fund. The clock is ticking. It closes this evening. The fund has raised about $250,000. This is a grant for bricks and mortar, up to $5,000. And just as a reminder, over $1 million has been raised to date. This round is about $250,000. So if you're on the fence, I'm getting texts from people that are going in who are realizing they are not eligible because they did not follow the stay-at-home order. So that is one of the criteria for this grant, is that you must have followed the stay-at-home order. It's an equity issue. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to call and we can explain. Second, if you are in the eastern slope, there are still funds available in the Sierra Resilience Fund. This is not a grant, it's a loan, but it's about the best money you can get. $25,000, up to $25,000 at 2%. And it's been funded by the community. It's a 5-year term. There's a 6-month deferral. There's still money available, resiliencepfund.org. And because it's funded by the community, it's only available on the eastern side. Next, I want to talk about these new programs from the state of California that just came out. The first one, the California Rebuilding Fund, is a loan. It's up to $100,000. And I cannot, in good conscience, recommend this loan to any people right now. We have not had great success with clients going through it, but there are favorable terms. It is underwritten by local intermediaries, so alternative lenders. In our region, it's probably the Opportunity Fund, but they are available and there is a link. Second is probably the most confusing program we have out there right now, the Small Business COVID Relief Grants. And these were opened by the state of California last week on Thursday. The grant portal opened and promptly was overloaded. It's been overloaded for about a week. I think they finally caught up. In fact, the application was it was so cumbersome and overloaded that it has been extended this round until January 13th to get your application in. The eligibility are small businesses and nonprofits. So they're C6s and C3s with annual gross revenues of 2.5 million or less based on your most recent filed taxes. So probably 2019. If you're 1 penny over, you do not qualify. The initial review of your grant application is done by artificial intelligence. So they'll verify it on your tax return. The grant size ranged from 5,000 to 25,000 for the higher revenue, and it's all based on gross revenues. It is a ranked lottery distribution system based on 4 factors: your impact in COVID-19. So if you were in that high tier industries that had to close down, you are in a priority. If you are a disadvantaged community designation, you have priority. Rural is definitely a box you want to check on this. If you're in Nevada County, you have priority. And then underserved business ownerships, meaning women, veterans, people of color, minorities, you definitely want to check that box. And I can tell you that you do not need a certification for that. If you are a woman-owned business, check that box. You do not need a certification. And again, it closes on January 13th. And then finally, the sales tax extension, Main Street tax credit, way too complicated for this session. But if you're interested, there's a link and you can get in touch with us. And I'll tell you how in a minute. Now, the new federal program coming down, which probably the most exciting is the PPP second draw round. It's called the second draw because if you did receive a loan in the first round and you have fully spent that, you are eligible to draw again. If you did not receive a PPP, you actually have priority. A few things have changed. One is the maximum revenue for this round is $2 million. So remember, it was 10 million before. This takes out a lot of large businesses, and the maximum number of employees is 300. In order to qualify for this, you also must show a 25% reduction in gross receipts quarter over quarter, meaning you want to take your most volatile quarter. So if it was second quarter of 2019 versus second quarter of 2020 because you were closed, you want to show that. We actually don't have the full guidelines yet. The application is not open. I am hearing that they may be available by the end of next week, so stay tuned, but this is what we know so far. Then, of course, expanded unemployment, eviction moratoriums, stimulus checks, and potentially in the next round of a rescue package, there may be more county level CARES type funding available, but we don't know. That's speculation. Your best contact for the PPP will be Leslie or I, or any other SBDC if you don't like us, and your bank. These loans will go through your bank. So hopefully you have a good relationship with your bank and you can work with them, but don't call them yet because I don't think they have any more information than we do yet. Maybe they do. Now, for businesses that just need help, that are struggling, want advice, we have lots of that available. Of course, there's Sierra Commons. There's a new business igniter that's being designed for spring 2021. There's also the Business Creator, all online. It starts next January 12th in the evening, and you can still sign up for that. And then again, the Economic Resource Council has their Tectonic Tuesdays. They had a great session with Molly from the farm, Sierra Harvest, last week. And then we have a whole slew of free workshops from the SBDC on all different topics. And there's the link to our network calendar and our weekly free legal assistance. And once the PPP is rolling, we'll have assistance on that application. And also, this is really important. The California Grant Assistance has a daily webinar at 11 a.m. They're very helpful, very, very helpful. And you can access them. If you give us an email, we can send you the link. You need to sign up in advance, but it's free. They are recorded. And maybe once I'm off, I will put the link to the website to those recordings in the chat in a moment. And then, of course, no cost business counseling for any business in Nevada County. You can go to our site, sign up. We will hook you up with a counselor. Leslie, what did I miss?
The only thing I want to share, thanks, Kristen, that was great. Relative to the PPP, if everybody understands that Paycheck Protection Program, we don't have guidelines like Kristen said, but you can go to your financial institution's website because they're all broadcasting whether they're participating or not. And they'll say, stay tuned or click here for info, or this is what we know to date. So if you did receive the funds before, go to the same institution, verify that they're still going to participate. And if you didn't participate before, check with your lending institution and or send us a request for help because there will be lender matches through community development financial institutions.
And Wendy added in, thank you very much, Wendy, for nonprofits. If your organization is mostly run by women, you could check that woman box, play that women card. It's the decade of the woman, if you haven't heard, so check that box. And Valerie, what about groups supporting older adults? Is this for technical assistance, workshops, the grants? I'm not sure. You can private message me and I will happy to answer that question. Unless, yeah, or just put it in the chat, in the Q&A, maybe. Here we go.
I think, Kristen, that might have been directed towards Ryan and vaccination.
Got it.
So I think he covered that question. Thanks.
I see that now. Yep. Okay, excellent. Any other questions, put them in Q&A and we'll be happy to answer them. And I will post the link for those really important webinars on the California grant. One other thing about the California grant is the initial round of grants are $237 million. Then there will be an additional $237 million. Yesterday, the governor announced that he will double the pot. The total pot right now is $500 million, and he wants to at least double that because there's just been an overwhelming response. Clearly, the demand exceeds supply. So stay tuned for that as well.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Leslie. I'd like to recognize Supervisor Dan Miller who's joined us. Welcome, Dan.
I was busy. We're recruiting for RCRC president, CEO, so all day interviews.
All right, well, glad you could join us. All right, so looking in the Q&A or in the chat for questions for our panel.
Well, Valerie's clarifying that maybe her question was about grants. So
those programs, Kristen, Valerie's group is a nonprofit. They're eligible for these grants from the state, correct?
Yes, if you are a 501c3 or C6, you are eligible for those grants. And Valerie, if you have questions, I'm going to put the best email to get Leslie or I, because we check this not 24/7, but it feels like it. You'll want to email us there and we can help you out. Happy to.
Great. And as you guys have probably recognized, we've switched from the Zoom meeting to the Zoom webinar. This really allows us to reach a broader audience. But I do encourage you, when you get the invitation, to share it with your members and with your constituents so that they should feel free to join these calls. We have I think a very high limit. I think we could have 500 people join this call if they want. And I believe last month we had just under 300 people participate. And it's probably a good place to get the information. Our next meeting is, we're now going to meet on the first Wednesday of the month at this time. So the next meeting is February 3rd. And then just going back to the agenda, the only item that I had Kristen did a great job of covering the Nevada County Relief Fund. As she mentioned, those applications are due tonight at 6 o'clock. So if you want to use the next 2.5 hours to apply, please go ahead, although we have plenty of applications. We have raised, this is our 4th round. This is for small businesses only. We've raised over $250,000. 100 of that is courtesy of the Board of Supervisors, and 75,000 is from the town of Truckee. So I really want to thank the town of Truckee and the Board of Supervisors for investing in this program. And then the balance, which is over 75,000, is coming from large and small private donations. So again, thanking the generosity of our community, which has, it's just incredibly gratifying to see the list of people who are giving $10, $20, $100, and in some cases $5, $10, and $15,000, because they really believe that small business is such an integral part of our community. And who would we be without our main streets and small businesses? So we're going to keep that Nevada County Relief Fund going. It is a wonderful public-private partnership with a great team behind it. And but obviously the need is way beyond it, which is why it's so important to avail ourselves of these state and federal resources that Kristen is sharing. And we're hopeful that with the new administration, there'll be even more resources available. And our intent with the Business Task Force is both the mailing list and these meetings is to get this information out to you as quickly as possible. So we send it by email with the hope that you will share it broadly. If you are, with one of the cities, that you'll share it with your fellow council members and staff and constituent groups. If you're a head of a chamber, that you'll send it out to your members, et cetera. So you all know the drill, but please, I think it's better to overpost and get the word out than to have people who are really struggling to keep their doors open not know that there were resources available and to have missed a deadline. So with that, look back to the panel. Is there anyone who wants to add anything? All right, well, short and sweet today. Let me go to our supervisors for closing remarks. Supervisor Miller.
No, I'm sorry, I got into it late. At least I got the last part of Kristen's presentation. Exciting things for small businesses, and it's just a remarkably difficult environment for businesses. But we're hopefully going to get through this, and just hang in there.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Schofield.
Well, you've heard from me, but I want to give thanks not only to our public health team, but especially to Kristen and Leslie for their input on this seminar and their impact in helping our businesses. So thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Leslie.
All right, I'd like to thank our panel and thank our attendees. This will conclude this month's meeting. We'll send out a copy of the recording that you can share for anyone you think could use the information. Of course, this will also be archived on YouTube. So with that, Happy New Year, and we'll see you next month.